We're live, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Good to see everyone. Nice to see Trish outside. We can go outside at last. No rain. Fantastic. So it feels like a spring day today. Okay. Welcome to this special meeting of the Pension Investment Committee. Item 1, apologies.
Yes, Chair. We have apologies from Mary Thomas and Aon member Luke Hammond.
Okay. Thank you, carry on. Item 2, declaration of interest. I just declare, carry on, that I'm a member of a parish pension fund.
Likewise,
Chair.
And myself, Chair.
You carry on. Karina, sorry, I'm doing this again, aren't I? Everybody else, do you want to declare? Okay.
I declare also, if I wasn't heard.
Adam, are you okay with this declarations? Carry on.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Chair's opening remarks, item 3. As you can imagine, it's crunch time now with the creation of IMCO, and there's been loads of meetings, officers and the JGC members and the JGC chairs. And so, as you can see, with all what's going on with what we're deciding today, you can see there's a lot of work being done before the end of March, and there's a lot of things to tweak, etc. But yeah, been quite busy. Chris and Jane have been very busy. Okay, then. Item 4, Wales Pension Partnership, Local Government Pension Scheme, Government Documents to Meet the Fit for Future Requirements, Part A. I'm going to turn over to Chris for this. Oh, Chris?
Thanks, Chair. It's a mouthful, wasn't it? That opening title there. I'll share my screen if that's okay with the committee, just so I can take you through the covering report and whatnot. So bear me a second whilst I do that. So hopefully that is now showing the public pack for you.
It's coming. It's not there yet, but it says Chris. That's it. Lovely. Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Thank you very much. So yes, good afternoon, everybody. I hope we're all well. So my job today to take you through this covering report and the appendices attached to this, both in the public part of the meeting and then in the confidential part. And within this first part, we're looking at specifically the inter-authority agreement, or an amendment to the inter-authority agreement that exists between the 8 constituent authorities within Wales. And that makes up the governance arrangements in place in the Wales Pension Partnership, the WPP, as it currently exists. So if we work our way through the report slowly, obviously there's a lot of pages attached to these appendices and whatnot. So I'll take you through the report, and then we can look at other documents as needed.
So Adam,
yeah.
And then a quick question. Am I right in assuming that the inter-authority agreement is to go back to full council for agreement?
Yes,
and
correct.
Can you outline the timetable for that? So our role today is to give guidance on it, and
no, your role today would be to approve the amended inter-authority agreement and then to take that back to full council for approval on the 5th of March, I think is the date. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you. So the first part of the paper just sets out the agenda as to where we were, where we started from, and where we're getting to today. So a quick bit of background is that in 2015, the Chancellor set out, or the then Chancellor set out his expectations and desires when it came to LGPS investments, essentially looking for economies of scale and to drive some more investment into infrastructure and investments into the UK, essentially. So as a result of that initiative, the original Wales Pension, or the current Wales Pension Partnership, was set up, made up of the 8 pension funds that you can see within 2.3. There were different methodologies and approaches taken to setting up pooling in its initial form. Some pools built their own financial conduct authority, FCA regulated investment management company, IMCO, and others like the Wales Pension Partnership, the WPP, chose to rent in that expertise using an operator-based model, and that's currently managed by Waystone, as you'll be aware. The important thing to note is the last sentence there, is that the Wales Pension Partnership did not form an FCA-regulated investment management company, and that's important because of obviously what we're doing and looking to do over the next couple of items. 2.5 and 2.6 just goes through the rationale as to why the WPP built or used the model that it did back in the case, and the benefits of doing it on a Wales specific basis. Obviously, we have our own independent needs compared to those funds in England Future Generations of Wales Act and Welsh Language Act, for example, as two examples as to why that approach was taken at that point in time. And it's important to note as well that this was completely in accordance with the government requirements at the time as well. So WPP was fully set up in a way that satisfied the government at that point in time. It was set up with an inter-authority agreement between the 8 administering authorities, and each administering authority was represented on the decision-making body, the Joint Governance Committee, by its respective pension fund chair. And indeed, our committee chair here is currently the chair of the Joint Governance Committee at the WPP as well. The Joint Governance Committee is also supported by the Officer Working Group, which is made up of Section 151 officers and pension fund practitioners. We're just setting that out because that just changes slightly under the new arrangements, which we'll come on to later on. So that's been in existence since 2017. Roll that forward to November 2024, and the government launched a new initiative, a new consultation called the Fit for the Future consultation, which obviously we've discussed many, many times since then. And the intentions were to outline a range of proposals to strengthen, in their view, the management of the LGPS investments, looking at 3 areas in particular. One was to reform the LGPS asset pools that had been in place since 2017. 2, looking to boost LGPS investments in the localities and regions in the UK. And 3, to strengthen the governance of both the administering authorities and the pools at the same time. So, off the back of that initiative, the WPP formulated a business case, which it submitted to government in February or March 2025, which subsequently received approval from the Minister for Pensions and Local Government on the 9th of April 2025. And the project to implement this business case was named Project Snowdon. 2.9 just reminds us that not all the pools were successful within their business application or submission to the government into how they were going to meet these new expectations. And Brunel and Access, as I mentioned, were unsuccessful, which means that the underlying administering authorities within those 2 pools are now having to move across to another pool, essentially. So by retaining a Wales pool, there's no need for us as a Powys Fund, for example, to have to do that. We're creating a new investment management company. So in July 2025, the council made the following approvals, and that was the creation of a wholly owned Wales Pension Partnership investment management company owned by the administering authorities within that, and submit that application to the Financial Conduct Authority which included things like the senior management functions and whatnot, and to build this investment management company to satisfy the government requirements, essentially. But in addition to that approval in July 2025 from the council, it delegated some decisions to the Pension Investment Committee and the Section 151 officer. One of those was an amendment to the inter-authority agreement, which we're talking about now. But having had some discussions with the monitoring officers, if we look at paragraph 2.11, the monitoring officer advised it's probably a good idea for us to take this back to the full council for approval, which is why we're presenting this paper to you today. It was felt that it was unwise for the AA approval to be delegated in this way, hence why it's suggested it's been taken back to the full council on the 5th of March. So in order to meet the Fit for the Future ambitions, it's expected to become legislation on the 1st of April. It's been necessary to change the governance arrangements within the WPP. And the assurance paper, hopefully that you've had the chance to read, provided by Hymans Robertson, has given an overview of the new governance arrangements. So we had a briefing about this a few weeks ago, you'll recall. So that paper has been updated and shared as part of your meeting pack. And the main changes include the creation of a new shareholder forum to oversee the IMCO and act as the forum for decision-making in respect of shareholders, the reserved matters. Changes to the terms of reference for the Officer Working Group and the Joint Governance Committee, and the revised inter-authority agreement to reflect the required changes to the governance arrangements. So the updated inter-authority agreement contains Appendix 3, and Appendix 2 summarises those changes for you. So in order to produce these lengthy documents, Burgess Salmon have been working on behalf of the constituent authorities within the WPP. So we've been acting as a client to Burgess Salmon for the purpose of this work. So the legal documents have been written by legal specialists, legal experts in this area. Alongside that, the WPP's oversight advisor, Hymans Robertson, have been reviewing the documents from a non-legal perspective, just to ensure that the legal documents contain what's the government is expecting within their Fit for the Future proposals, and that it will achieve our investment pooling arrangements and objectives as we move across the IMCO. There's also been input from the officer working group members, so that's the Section 151 officers and senior pension fund practitioners, and also the monitoring officers have fed into this process as well, and they've had several meetings to review and make comment on these legal documents. So we've had some local legal advice via our monitoring officers as well. I'm very grateful to the time that our monitoring officer has found to support us throughout this process as well, because they have given up a lot of time to make sure that the documents are in the form and shape that you see in front of you. One thing that's not included in 4.3, but I think it's important to mention, is that alongside this, the pension board chairs have had constant engagement and involvement throughout this process. So from a scrutiny and governance perspective, the pension board chairs have been met with and have had sight of these papers as well in advance. That's in addition to meetings with the Joint Governance Committee members themselves. So whilst it's not captured within this point, there's been additional engagement and interaction with those bodies as well. So in terms of the next steps, there may need to be some minor amendments still made to inter-authority agreement to reflect the final legislation. But it's suggested that any further amendments will be not significant, and they should be agreed by Section 151 officers in consultation with the pension fund chair where appropriate. And this is just trying to capture that the legislation doesn't appear until the 1st of April. So we're operating this based on what we think will be in there. We're pretty confident that's what it is. But also the fact that it's got to go through 8 pension fund committees and councils as well. So it's just leaving any minor amendments open for implementation ahead of the 31st of March 2026. And it suggested that that rather than us having to call committee meetings and then get it through full council again, is that these delegations are made to the Section 151 officer in conjunction with the pension committee chair where appropriate. Once that's done, the documents are in an agreed form. They'll need to be executed, so signed and sealed, so they can then move to legal completion. And this is exactly the same as what happened with the original inter-authority agreement back in 2017 as well.
Adam, you got your hand up?
Minor timeline question. Chris, if you don't see the final guidance from the government until the 1st of April, yet we're meant to sign off legally before the 31st of March, how does that work?
It is a difficult one, Adam. Yeah, we're having to operate on a few scenarios here. One, the FCA want this in place by the 31st of March. So by not doing that, we risk not being authorised by the Financial Conduct Authority in that time. And this is operating based on the draft legislation that we've seen. So the government have produced the draft regulations. And from what I can gather, there's not an expectation that they will be changed at all. There might be some minor amendments, I guess, around the edges, but we're having to operate this based on what we know now and what we expect. So if there are any changes, then they're expected to be very minor, which we try to capture in 5.1.
And is legal completion, is that legal completion of the inter-authority agreement or legal completion of the final bits of IMCO?
Yeah, so the shareholder and agreements and the client services agreement are the legal documentations between the fund and the investment management company. The inter-authority agreement is the agreement between the 8 funds as an entity. So it's essentially signing off all those 3 documents today. Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, but I take it they could be changed at a later date. Could they slightly if they weren't correct, though?
Yeah.
They could have. We're absolutely right. And I think within the scope, there is a suggestion that these documents will be reviewed in 12 to 18 months' time.
Yeah,
so sometime in 2027, that should things change,
yeah,
there's an opportunity for us to revisit the yeah.
What's happened now?
Can I just say, Clive's been very much involved, our monitoring officer, and He's been very heavily involved, Clive, as his expertise has been paramount in all this as well. So it does help for Powys when it goes to full council as well. It has been scrutinised very heavily.
Yes, the monitoring office has been heavily involved over the past few weeks, really getting their teeth into the nitty gritty of this. So that's been giving us some assurances as well. Yeah. Oh, there it is in 5.5. There we are. So it does say it's expected there will be a review of the governance arrangements and related documents in 2027. I knew I'd seen it somewhere. I've read so many documents. It was apologies, but it's actually in 5.5 there. Yeah. So there's a proposal that we'll review this to make sure it all captures what we needed to do.
Trish?
Yeah. I just wanted to say I was very pleased to see that actually, and in the authority document at the moment, there's in paragraph 3.2, it says constituent authorities shall each review. So that is a very positive thing, saying you shall review rather than just an expectation, although that's obviously you're going by what the draft legislation says at the moment. But I thought that was very reassuring that there would be an opportunity, that actually has to take place. Thank you.
Thanks, Trish.
Yeah, thanks, Trish. So section 6 is discussing the financial implications of this. So this is all being set out within the plan and the budget. There are additional costs for setting up the investment management company, and one example I can think of immediately is to become an FCA regulated entity, you have to have some regulatory capital available. So there'll be a need for us to be able to provide some regulatory capital for the IMCO. And obviously there are costs associated with running an investment management company, which us as shareholders and clients, we are responsible for. But we do pay for the running of the WPP proportionately now anyway. So these are costs which we are used to, but they will change slightly when it comes to the actual running of the investment management company. Section 7 just covers the legal implications of this arrangement. As we've mentioned a couple of times, Clive has fed into this very he's given a lot of time to help us consider this. But it's necessary for the Pension Investment Committee to approve the recommendations in this report in order for the Powys Pension Fund to meet the governance expectations for investment pooling, which a draft legislation will be a regulatory requirement for all administering authorities from the 1st of April 2026. So we are operating on a very tight timescale. As noted in paragraph 4.1, Burgess Salmon are legal advisors to all the constituent authorities. They advise the constituent authorities on all matters connected with LGPS investment pooling, and all the constituent authorities can rely on their advice on the basis and terms set out in the Burgess Salmon contract without necessity to obtain separate legal advice. Burgess Salmon drafted the revised IAA acting for the WPP constituent authorities, and that's just pointing out that the investment management company, the IMCO, has sought their own legal advice via a different legal advisor where appropriate. So we have had advice from the experts on this, representing us, not representing the investment management company. So it's important to point out that separation between the two entities as well. And then 7.3 again is just pointing out that the monitoring officers of all 8 constituent authorities have reviewed and agreed the governance documents requiring pension committee approval. So ours has also seen these. So before I move on to the recommendations, I thought it was just, we talked a lot about the inter-authority agreement. It's a very lengthy document, as I'm sure you've had the chance to read through. But essentially, I just wanted to summarise the changes within there just for committee's benefit, to try and pull them out into 2 or 3 points, essentially. So the changes to the inter-authority agreement have essentially been amended to remove the responsibilities that are no longer applicable. And an example of that would be currently the Joint Governance Committee are responsible for appointing the operator, for example. So Waystone, the contract provided to Waystone currently goes through the Joint Governance Committee for approval. That will no longer need to happen within the new arrangements because that will be an investment management company responsibility. So there's a need to take those sorts of things out of the inter-authority agreement, which are no longer relevant. It has added in some new responsibilities, and that's essentially considering the Joint Governance Committee's view as a shareholder and a client. So placing the expectations and what we expect as clients and service delivery from the IMCO, that's been inserted into the investment management, into the inter-authority agreement. It wasn't there before because we didn't need to do that. And what it's also doing is it's setting out the revised terms of reference for the Joint Governance Committee and the Officer Working Group, and adding in some terms of reference for the new shareholder forum, which is the decision-making body within the new governance arrangements. So hopefully you've seen all the diagrams within the assurance pack to show you how that all flows through. But I think those are probably the three main tweaks to the inter-authority agreement, summarised at a very high level. Taking out what's no longer needed, adding in what is now needed, and revising the terms of reference for the existing governance arrangements to make sure they comply with the new expectations. So hopefully that's a high-level summary of what you've seen in the inter-authority agreement as it stands. So on the basis of that, the recommendations today are that the Pension Investment Committee in 8.2 approve the updates to the inter-authority agreement for recommendation to full council for its approval on the 5th, as we've already mentioned. Any amendments required to the inter-authority agreement as a result of legislative changes are delegated to the Section 151 officer in conjunction with the chair of the Pension Investment Committee, and to delegate the final approval and signing of the document to the Section 151 officer, again in consultation with the chair of the committee. So those are the three recommendations that we're looking for today, Chair. I'll stop there. I realise I've rattled through that, so I'm happy to take any questions if any of the committee have them.
Okay, well, thanks, Chris. Thanks for explaining such a, it's a lot to go through. And when you look at the IAA, it's a lot to read, isn't it? It's yeah. So any questions?
Well, just a query more than a question. I take it that every sort of member of the WPP will take this agreement back to full council for approval.
Yes, that's correct. So, so as far as I'm aware, this report or similar report to this has been through 2 pension funds already, and the outcome will be that this revised inter-authority agreement would then be recommended to their council as well. So in exactly the same process we're following. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Thank you.
Karina?
I don't have the diagram of all the different responsibilities in front of me, but you and Jane are in the shareholders. Is that fair?
I think it's Section 151 officer or nominated representative. I think is probably how it's worded, Karina. But yes, it's an officer-based. Yeah, it's an officer-based forum. Yeah.
And there's another officer working group. So I wondered who's going to populate that.
That's again made up of the Section 151 officers. So the way that the officer working group works is that acts as a little bit like we do to the committee here. The officers act as a support to the Joint Governance Committee. So Peter and his colleagues, who are the chairs of the other funds in Wales, the officer working group support those. The Joint Governance Committee then will make decisions and agree on policies and things like that. That will then be fed up to the shareholder forum, and that's the decision-making entity under the new arrangements. So it's 2 different responsibilities, and the shareholder forum act on the decisions made by the Joint Governance Committee, essentially.
So you're in a sort of supporting role. You're the technical expertise. Is that fair?
Correct. Yes, basically. Yeah.
And are you going to get on? I didn't understand the shareholder agreement, the A and B shares. Are we going to get on to that?
Well, can we cover that under the separate separate item, if that's okay?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Thanks, Karina. Any more questions? Trish?
Yes, it's something that I remember a while ago talking about the fact there were going to be sort of fact sheets for people so that they could, get a bit of a handle on all this. And I just wanted some reassurance. I think I know the answer well, but I want some reassurance that changes in the IMCO won't have any effect on actual payments to people, because there have been problems in the civil service in England when there were changes in the administration arrangements. It's all been in the press really quite recently, and I think I just want some reassurance that this couldn't possibly happen as a result of what we're doing today. Thanks.
No problem, Trish. No, thanks for that. Yeah, so you're right. The problems that I think Capita have had in respect to the civil service pension scheme is related to the administration. That's not part of the scope of this work at all. This is simply looking at the investments. I say simply. This is only really looking at the investments and the governance arrangements within the LGPS. So the administration will remain local.
Yes.
Pooling of the assets is what we're discussing here. So no, we're not expecting any changes to administration as part of this.
Thank you very much.
No, good point. Thanks, Trish. Adam?
No, thank you, Chair. I'm going to probably reflect that you didn't call it Project Snowden for no reason, but it's one hell of a mountain that's been climbed by officers, advisors, and indeed yourself, Peter, as Chair. So I want to preface my comment by saying, look, 99% of what we're looking at is brilliant and phenomenal, and getting it through at the last minute is an art in its own right. I have two broad concerns just I want to air, just so they're sort of aired. One is sort of a fiduciary comment from me as a pension investment committee member, which is I'm reading hundreds of pages and looking at all sorts of legal documentation. I'm going, whoa. And I'm a I like to think, relatively experienced board member and reader of papers. And I feel that I'm significantly adrift from where you as the lead officers are and PT where you are. So I feel slightly ill-equipped to be practically approving a lot of these significant changes. I trust an awful lot, and what I'm looking at looks in the right direction, looks appropriate. But I just wanted to reflect that had we had more time in a different world, that being brought along through greater ability to sit and interrogate some of the queries here, or have some time alone as a committee to be sitting thinking about where our concerns lie, would have helped give me confidence as a pension investment committee member. That's one reflection, and my second one is the one area where I do actually have a concern about what I'm looking at, and I think we raised it when we had the briefing with you, and I haven't seen anything in the current paperwork that necessarily addresses that. We seem to be adding in, and we are adding in the shareholder forum. Well, we're adding in two things. We're adding in an IMCO. It's only right, and we're adding in a shareholder forum, and both of those are significantly and heavily populated by officers. So there's professional officers, and there's a real role for those, and that in its own right is the idea of officers having professional advisors having a significant role to play in all this, because it's a big, serious piece of business, is correct. What I worry about is where that seems to relegate the role of the elected members and the members of the Pension Investment Committee. So, and that's in two places. One is, in the reading through, it is unclear to me precisely who populates the IMCO board, and I have an inherent problem with chief execs sitting on boards. One chief exec maybe, but no more execs, just because they already have significant power as chief exec of a company, and to put them on the board runs risks, in my view. And so I'm concerned that the IMCO board, from what I've been reading, is exposed to those sorts of risks and without the due oversight. And the due oversight comes from, the only due oversight seems to come from either above or below. So below is via the client agreement, where we quite clearly rely on you, Chris, and Jane as the officers to manage the client agreements that we've agreed and signed off. So again, you as officers have a significant role to play, or via the shareholder forum. And that's, I think, where the nub of my concerns lies, is that what we've done is create a shareholder forum and then appointed what may end up being the same officers to both the shareholder forum and the officer working group. And the only role for the joint governance committee, where you sit, Peter, is, yes, there's definitely something in there about policy and framing some of the policy, but actually it's an advisory role to be called upon. And there's no obligation for the shareholder forum to directly listen to the views of the joint governance committee. And the knock-on effect of that is that we as an individual pension and investment committee are relegated even further back in terms of the roles we play. So that's my concern, is that inserting a new shareholder forum, we water down the democratic oversight of this. And I did wonder, And I've only been able to find one reference, which I think was page 79, which may not be in the right part of about the rationale for why there was a shareholder forum, and it was to do with reflecting the closer knowledge and detailed knowledge of officers have, which I fully recognise. But given the fact that we use you as advisors on our day-to-day pension investment committee, that we have expert advisors surrounding us, that our new IMCO is full of professionals, it feels to me that it's unnecessary to also appoint those officers into the shareholder position. So I did wonder why we didn't simply elevate our joint governance committee to being the shareholder forum. And I haven't seen a rationale. And it was a question we raised about 6 weeks back when we had the briefing. So I don't know if you can talk to that a little bit, because it does worry me still.
Okay. Jane, did you put your hand? Do you want? I can see where you're coming from. Did you want to respond to that, Jane, or is it your officer working group, or Chris?
I'll start with the first query because I totally understand, your feeling as you've expressed it about how equipped you are to look at all of these legal documents. So I'm going to start on that one. And I can quite understand that. And I think even from the perspective of officers, sometimes, wading through legal documentation is a tough call for lots of people. But to give you the assurance that we've had those legal experts looking at it from our perspective to advise us and be quite clear on that side of things is absolutely fundamental to this. And I think we are fortunate in Wales in that we work collaboratively. So we're calling on the power of, 8 constituent authorities with the breadth of experience that there is across all of those 8 funds to support each other as we work through this, and particularly as you've pointed out, the pace at which we've had to do that. So, we have done everything that we possibly can to make sure that we have that really clear and consistent advice through those legal experts, but also with that oversight from Hymans Robertson as well. So you've got a 3-pronged approach to it, really. It's the constituent authorities and the experience of officers. You've got that independent legal advice that we can all rely on because we've been able to procure that collectively, which in itself is good from that economic factor, isn't it? That we haven't all had to pay for individual advice. We can do that collaboratively, but also with that oversight that we've had from Hymans Robertson's as well as more experts in this field as well. So I think you can rely on everything that you've had from those organisations to help you work through this and the plethora of legal documents that you see before you. And I think that's what we've tried to do as well in some of those summary documents, is set out what those main changes are in a way that is much more user-friendly for you, rather than have to wade through the documents yourself and see what's changed. So I'm hoping we've done as much as we possibly can to help you navigate through that so that you have a good understanding yourselves. I'm going to just have a look myself back at some of the documents in terms of the shareholder forum as we're talking now, but I'll see. I don't know if Chris wants to come in at that position at the moment, just to pick up on that initially, and I'll just see if I need to add anything then from what Chris sets out for you.
That's fine. Yeah, I think I can, just coming back to your point about the Joint Governance Committee, Adam, they've actually got a responsibility as two ways here, both as shareholders and clients. They'll be responsible for monitoring performance from the IMCO as clients, for example. So any performance reporting and whatnot would come to the JGC for scrutiny, much like it does now. So in the meetings that Peter attends, performance reports are delivered to Joint Governance Committee as they are. That'll carry on. And as the shareholders, they'll be there to feed through decisions to the people in the shareholder forum, whether that be Jane or myself. And it would put us in a very sticky situation, I guess. We are talking about shareholder documents and arrangements here, but we can cover it in the public part, it's fine. If we were to act against our committee, for example, it would put us in a very difficult situation as officers. So we would be there to enact on committee and Joint Governance Committee wishes and desires. So whilst I understand the risk attached to that, I think as officers, it put us in a very difficult position if we to act against the decisions and whatnot of the committee. So hopefully that's given you some assurances on that one. I'd have to revisit the paperwork as well as to why, it's echoing Jane's thoughts as to why the recommendation was for the shareholder board to be that. But I think it's potentially, I don't know. Let's take out the paperwork and have a look for you on that one.
Yeah, this is sort of a bit of an empiric discussion, and I apologise because obviously we're talking about the inter-authority agreement.
Yes.
But inside of that is a lot of the terms of reference around the shareholder agreement.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of an sort of empiric discussion because we are sort of in a position where we have no choice other than to approve this. Otherwise, we derail the whole process. So it makes it a bit difficult because we're here to essentially. I suppose in reading the documents, Chris, Peter, I couldn't see in the way that you prescribed that level of substantive, direct control of the JGC. And I suppose you touched on it. There's a degree of scrutiny, so it feels a little bit more like a scrutiny after the effect. Whereas the control is either via your contract, which is set and then implemented by the officers and the officers working group, or via the shareholders. And at the moment, both of those are solely dominated by officers. And I don't want this to be a criticism of officers, but repeat that again. But it's that balance. It feels out of balance, and it feels like a diminishing of the democratic mandate that's passed from all the way through us onto this committee and into guiding the strategy, etc. So that's in the officer working group, which I approve of, the shareholder group, which I'm worried about, and the bit you haven't touched on, which is then the actual board of the IMCO, which is, it'd be good if you could just explain precisely who's on that, the number of people.
I don't think Jane's got her hand. She's got, I think, information come back to you now. Jane?
Only some to sort of set it out. I think the key thing to remember as all of this whole change that we're looking at with the investment management company coming in as well, this is something that's been legislated on local government pension schemes, that the investment management company will be responsible for the implementation of each of our investment strategies, but they will also be the principal source of that investment advice. And I think that is the fundamental change to what we're looking at here, isn't it? And that's very much being dictated to us by government. Whereas in the past, we've got that advice and sought it through our own investment advice that then comes to committee for that approval process. And I think having that approval of investments being delivered through the investment management company is obviously the fundamental change, isn't it? Where there is that responsibility for committee members and that local decision making is clearly aligned to that strategy and how we set that out. And then the IMCO will obviously deliver against that strategy in terms of the decisions that it makes and the advice that it gives to get us to that place. So I totally understand, though, where you're coming through from in terms of the shareholder side of things. And perhaps we can have that discussion a little bit more when we move into our next session, looking specifically at that shareholder agreement. But we hear what you're saying, and I think we will feed that back through our Project Snowdon group. We'll see what other members of other committees' thoughts are as they've looked at this as well. And we can consider that then in terms of where we go next. But obviously that's the position that we're in at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Jan. I hope you're happy with that, Adam.
Can I just round it off, because
quickly.
I absolutely recognise that the broad thrust here is imposed upon us by the UK government, and 99% of what you've achieved on Project Snowdon is brilliant to respond to that. But I think it makes it even more important to say the bit that we are in control of is how we govern the IMCO. So I suppose, given where we are, maybe I could ask that we make a note to specifically review when we're looking at this in 2027, that we are given the time to have a proper look at the board structure of IMCO and the membership of the shareholder forum, because that's where I feel we're out of balance. And if we don't have a specific marker for that, I'd find it very difficult to say I agree with this because of that imbalance. But if we can have a very clear marker that says we will have a full 360 review of those things when we're a year in, that would be, that would allay my fears.
We still have time. 2027 will soon be here. We'll be able to any things we got concerns with. We're going to propose in 2027, can't we? Yeah.
And is it possible that we're going to review that as this committee, or is it going to be, I suppose it's a precise point. Depends when in 2027 you do this. If we do this in early 2027, you're doing it with this committee. If you're doing it in late 2027, you're doing it with a newly elected committee. So could I ask that we do it with this committee, even if it's the last thing we do as a committee in this term of office?
I don't think there's any harm in starting the process almost immediately, Adam, basically, to be honest. So I think as soon as we're into the new arrangements, we can start addressing these sorts of things, can't we? But yeah, we'll give it the time that we can.
That can be recorded. That'd be helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Thank you. Any more questions? No, I did see Hugh's hands up before. Hugh, you okay now?
Yeah, Jane answered most of what I was saying, but can I just draw you to the 2.2 update the IAA summary note? 2.2, there is no legal requirement for there to be a joint committee of the constituent authorities or for client governance to be managed through the Joint Governance Committee. However, we understand the view is there will be a benefit in maintaining the structure of the Joint Governance Committee as the public face or client governance. And it's a working structure which has successfully progressed. So there is a bit of, well, as it says, public-facing responsibility for the Joint Governance Committee as well. So there is a purpose to it.
Yeah. No, we're being scrutinised by the public still, aren't we, Hugh?
Yeah.
Yeah, by the chamber, and then from the chamber to the public.
But there's no legal requirement for it.
No.
Okay, thank you. It's just an observation.
So yes, we're keeping that in place, that arrangement in place, Hugh, because it has worked so well. So
yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. There's no more questions. Are we happy to go to recommendations? Oh, Errol.
Yeah, no, as you say, we've had a good discussion, so I was just happy to propose a recommendation, Chair. That's all I was.
Well, I'll propose for recommendation 1, 2, and 3. Oh, Dali, do you want to speak?
Very briefly, Chair.
So
just to clarify my support, that we have, as board chairs, as Chris said, as pension board chairs, we've been engaged with and included in discussions throughout the process, and we've questioned some of the process as we've gone along. We're now, as Chris explained, we're in the latter stages of this and it's the Westminster government's draft regulations which insist on pools being FCA approved investment management companies. You as a committee and council made the decision in principle to stay with WPP and form our own IM company last summer. We're now agreeing on the fine-tuning of those governance details, which have been drawn up on behalf of the 8 constituent authorities by Burgess, the solicitors, and then developed after due diligence by the finance, the pensions practitioners, and monitoring officers. And what's in front of us now is to suit our requirements as 8 funds and also to pass muster at the FCA. There's a bit of a compromise there, because what we would like, perhaps, it has to be compromised to pass muster at the FCA. So just to confirm that engagement with pension board chairs has been there, very open, fair play with the officers involved all through the process. And yeah, just a point on Adam's suggestion of review before the May 27 elections. I would support that. Sometimes, well, I've had experience of a big change in the members on pensions committees after elections. So while I wouldn't wish that on any of you, of course, I think you do build up experience in the role, and it will be very useful for not just Powys, but for all 8 authorities' pension funds to review this during the life of their existing pension committee membership. Diolch.
Thanks, David. Okay, thank you very much for them words. We've had a proposal, Meryl. Can we have a seconder, please? Hugh. Okay. Cover show of hands, please. Seconded by Hugh. So are we in favour? Yeah, unanimous. Okay, carry on. You got all that? You got everybody?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Okay, then. Item 5. Thank you very much for that. Exempt item. The monitoring officer has determined that category 3 of the access to information procedure rule. Oh, sorry. Do you want to log out first? Do you carry on?
No, Chair. So if you could just read that, and then
Okay.
we'll have a proposer, seconder, and show of hands to go confidential, and then I'll move us across.
Procedure rule applies to the following items. His view on the public interest test, having taken the account of the provisions of Rule 14.8 of the Council's access to information rules, was that to make this information public would disclose information relating to financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. These factors, in his view, outweigh the public interest in disclosing this information. Members are asked to consider these factors when determining the public interest test, which they must decide when considering excluding the public for this part of the meeting. We're happy with that. Can I have a proposal,
Yeah.
Seconder? Arwell.
Happy to move into confidential, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder, please. And be seconding.
Happy
Thank
to
you.
happy to second it.
You're all happy?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's happy. Okay, carry on. Can we exclude who shouldn't be here or go into private session?
Chair, could I just ask for a show of hands? Just
Okay.
from everyone.
Okay, can I show of hands, please? Or put your hands out.
Do you want us to put your hands up, Chair, do we?
Yeah,
Thank you, Chair. I'll move us across. I'll let you know when we're in confidential.
thank you.